Hello, my name is Andrew Perry, and today we're going to be going over my, see if I can pull it up here real quick. There it is, CSE 341 week 5 final project. So this is the first part of the final project for this class, so a lot of exciting stuff. I decided to go with something pretty simple. It's just an API for a to-do list, and then hopefully maybe after this class is over, I'll put together like a web client for the API, so that way I can actually use it for my future classes. So that's kind of the vision there, is that it's something that we can use for future projects, and not just something to show off. So I'll just go through this point for point. We have our published link here, our render service, and for the landing page, I actually routed it so it would just return this message here from the database, just to make sure that everything's working. So we have our hello world message and our MongoDB ID right there. You can tell because of the underscore. Um, uh, and next, oh yeah, the Swagger documentation. So this is our Swagger document, and it's a little slower to use than the REST file for testing. So I'm just going to show that this works real quick with a user create for our John Doe with some default parameters already set. So we execute, and there we go. We have user created successfully, returns code 201. We can copy the user ID for future use. But we actually have all the same default settings for our login as well. So we can try that out. And then, yep, we get our login information there, and that gives us our JWT, our JSON Web Token for user authentication. Now that's part of the week 7 part of the project, which I kind of didn't get when I put this together, so we can skip that part for time. And just to show that all the routes work and that there's proper handling for the different tasks, we actually have our testing file here. I'm going to go to my database. I have myself as a user already. This is part of the GitHub authentication. I'm going to remove our John Doe, go back to our code because we're going to recreate it through the REST file. Okay, and then this also is set up so it'll automatically, in this here, it'll automatically store the data as we use it. So that's what makes it a lot faster, which is nice. And then we can log in our John Doe user. Sometimes it takes just a sec. And we have our token information there, and that's already automatically updated. So then we can get user info. We can see this is what it returns if you are the user or administrator, or an administrator. And we have our update user info, changing it from John Doe to John Smith, updates the email as well. And then we actually have another whole route, our tasks here. Since this is a to-do list app, so you kind of need to have things to do. So we'll create this, and we have some values here that are checked through a validator, which is separate. You can see it here in our utilities folder. Actually, I know that some people they'll split the utilities, so you'll have like authentication logic for like the GitHub side, and then maybe like JWTs and things, and then separately you'll have validators in like a separate file. But this project's not that big, so they're all just put together in the utilities. So anyways, we can create our second task here, and we can the thing about tasks is they can have repeat titles, because sometimes that's just how tasks are. So you can actually click this as many times as you want, and each time you can see, even though all the information in it doesn't change, the ID actually changes because it is a separate task. So we'll create one of these third tasks here with the minimal required data. So you can see the description is empty, completed is false. By default there's always a priority, but it's set to low, and then due date is null, because sometimes you don't want a due date, don't want to have to worry about that. We can retrieve specific tasks through the task ID, which is set by MongoDB, and then we can request all of the user's tasks and this will only work if you either are the user or an administrator, because this is not like a social media kind of, you know, API or setup. So there's no need for you to be able to pull any information really about any other user. So that's kind of what differs this from the last project that I was working on. And then we can update tasks. We can change just about anything on here as long as it's still valid information. Okay, so we can update second task, update third task to remove the due date altogether. We can delete a specific task deleted successfully, and then we'll scroll back up to actually get all the user tasks to show that there's now 4 instead of the 5 that we had. And then now we can actually go ahead and just delete our user, because we've already showed that we can update and create our user. We can delete the user, and then it will not only delete the user, but it'll go through and delete all of the tasks for that user. So, and this is the start of another test file here, but I think that's it for that part. Yep, we show all our get, post, put, and delete requests, and you can see those on the documentation here as well. Let's see if I can close this out. Yep, you can see them all here. And then, yeah, we have our error handling. I don't know if the code demos that quite as thoroughly, but we can actually see that in both our routes and validators. So, for example, we have 400 error code for invalid validation, and then this actually pulls a specific description from the validator. And then we have this one here, error code 400, email already exists. 201, this is for a successful creation, and then this is kind of a catch-all at the bottom here, and all of the routes have this for basically if there's something else that happens that's not like predictably accounted for, it'll just give a 500. That's our generic catch-all error code. So I think that's it for that. And just as a quick note, this was the GitHub for this was actually through my GitHub. It's where it's hosted specifically, and I would say I did a good chunk of these code changes, so I think that's proof of 2 or more individual contributions, and this is me documenting them by saying them on video. And I think that's it for this part of the final. So hopefully in the next video we'll finish all of the rest of it, and I can show, you know, all the other stuff I've been working on. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.